Welcome back to BHY Solutions. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always excited to unearth those hidden gems.
Today we're tackling something a lot of people find, well, kind of scary. Networking.
Ah, yes, the dreaded N-word.
But fear not, dear listeners. We've got Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone as our guide, and trust me, his approach is surprisingly refreshing.
What I find really cool about Ferrazzi is he kind of turns the whole networking thing on its head.
How so?
Well, he ditches that whole, transactional, give me your business card vibe.
Right.
And instead, he's all about genuine generosity. It's not about what you can get, but what you can give.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Totally. Like, Ferrazzi even tells the story about people who actually refuse career advice.
Well, why?
They feel like they can't repay the favor. Like they're stuck in this I owe you one mentality, which is a total myth, by the way.
It's like they think there's only so much success to go around.
Well, exactly. It's that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
But Ferrazzi's saying, hey, the pie can get bigger for everyone.
I love that. Expand the pie, everyone wins.
Right. And that starts with ditching the scorekeeping. Forget about who owes who what.
Yeah, just be generous and trust that it'll come back around.
Exactly. And it's funny. Ferrazzi actually has a framework for this whole generosity thing.
Does he really? Like a step-by-step guide?
He does. And it starts with goal setting. First, you got to define your mission. Like, what do you even want your network to help you achieve?
Okay, so you got to know what you want before you start asking for help.
Right. Then, he says, write those goals down.
Make it real, huh?
Yep. And not just any goals, make them specific, make them believable, but also a little bit scary.
Push yourself a bit, right?
Exactly. And then comes the fun part, creating your relationship action plan.
Sounds kind of like a treasure map.
It kind of is. It's all about figuring out who are the key players that can help you reach those goals.
And then figuring out how to actually connect with them.
You got it. And the best part is, Ferrazzi's not just talking the talk, he's walked the walk. Like, he tells this story about wanting to become, get this, the youngest CMO in a Fortune 500 company.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Right. And guess what? He used his network to help him get there. Ended up at Deloitte, crushing it.
So it's not just about schmoozing, it's about strategically building relationships that can actually move the needle.
100%. And speaking of strategic connections, Ferrazzi talks about these, super connectors. You know, those people who seem to know everyone?
Oh yeah, the ones who light up a room. I
Yeah,
always feel a little intimidated by those types.
I know what you mean. But the thing is, they're kind of the key to unlocking this whole networking thing.
Because they know so many people.
Exactly. Ferrazzi even has this list of, professions that tend to attract super connectors.
Oh really? Like what?
Lobbyists, fundraisers, journalists, PR people, politicians.
Makes sense, those are all people-focused roles.
Right. It's like their job is to build and maintain these vast networks. Makes you wonder if we should all be taking notes, right?
Totally. But why are these super connectors so valuable to us? I mean, beyond the obvious knowing a lot of people thing.
Well, it actually goes back to this concept called the strength of weak ties. It's from this sociologist, Mark Granovetter.
Okay, I'm listening. Strength of weak ties.
So basically, he found that acquaintances can be more valuable than close friends when it comes to, new information and opportunities.
Wait, really? How's that possible?
Think about it. Your close friends, they're usually in the same circles as you. Similar experiences, access to the same stuff.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
All right. But acquaintances, they're coming from different worlds. They have access to stuff you might never even know about.
It's like tapping into this whole hidden network of possibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where those super connectors come in. They're the bridge between those worlds.
Okay, I get it. Super connectors, strength of weak ties. But how do we actually find these people? And then even trickier, how do we connect with them in a way that doesn't feel, fake?
Well, Ferrazzi really emphasizes the importance of, genuine interest. It's not about using people. It's about finding common ground, sharing your passions, and being open to learning from them.
So it's got to be real. You can't just pretend to be interested in someone's, stamp collection if you're not.
Exactly. And he actually tells this great story about connecting with this guy, Pat Lecanto, a bigwig at Deloitte.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out they both had this, shared Italian heritage and this crazy strong work ethic. And that connection blossomed into a huge mentorship for Ferrazzi.
Wow. So sometimes those connections can come from the most unexpected places.
Totally. But it all starts with being open to those connections and, putting yourself out there. It's amazing, right? Just a simple conversation about where you come from can lead to something so powerful.
It's a reminder that We're all just people at the end of the day, with stories to tell, experiences to share, and sometimes those shared experiences can lead to really deep connections. Speaking of deep connections, Farazi talks about this concept of life-bonding loyalty.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one for him. He's saying, the strongest relationships, they go beyond those surface level transactions.
It's not just about, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Exactly. He believes that when you help someone with what he calls the big three,
Which are?
their health, their wealth, or their children, those are the things that really matter to people. And when you step up and offer support in those areas, well, that creates a bond that's pretty unbreakable.
I could see that. Like you're showing up for someone in a way that really matters.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, sometimes that feels a little daunting.
Oh, I totally get it. It's not like we can all be playing matchmaker for our friends' kids or,
Yeah.
giving out financial advice left and right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that big. Ferrazzi uses examples like helping someone find a job or supporting their business or even just, being a good listener when they're going through a tough time.
It's about showing up in whatever way you can.
Exactly. Just being there for someone, offering genuine care and support, that's what matters. Like I remember when I was going through a career transition a few years back and a friend helped me revamp my resume.
Nice.
It was a small thing really, but it meant the world to me at the time.
Sometimes those small gestures are the ones that make the biggest impact.
Totally. It's all about being present, being attentive to what people need, and recognizing that, even the smallest acts of kindness can have this ripple effect.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to networking. Like I used to dread those big industry events. Just work in the room, collecting business cards. It all felt so.
Friends.
Exactly. But what if we shifted our mindset from networking to connecting? Like what if we went to those events with the intention of, I don't know, actually meeting interesting people, learning new things?
Now you're talking. And I bet it would make those events a lot more enjoyable too.
Totally. And you know what? Ferranzi actually has a whole section on how to navigate those big networking events. He calls it being a conference commando.
Conference commando. And that's awesome. I love it. So what's the secret weapon?
Well, he says you got to be strategic. Like set some goals beforehand. Figure out who you want to connect with. And then make a plan.
So no more just wandering around aimlessly, hoping to bump into someone interesting.
Exactly. You got to be proactive. Don't wait for people to come to you. Go out there and introduce yourself.
Be bold.
Exactly. And he even gives some really practical tips for engaging in those conversations. Like share your passions, ask thoughtful questions, and be genuinely interested in what other people have to say. He even says small talk is important.
Small talk, really? I always thought that was just filler.
I know, right? But he says it's a way to build rapport, to find common ground.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light. It's like those little moments of connection can actually lead to something deeper.
Totally. Like I remember once I was at a conference and I struck up a conversation with this woman about our mutual love of hiking.
Nice.
And a few months later, she actually reached out to me about this job opportunity that was a perfect fit.
Wow, so you never know where those conversations might lead.
Exactly. But what about when you're not at a conference? How do you cultivate those connections in, everyday life?
Well, Ferrazzi is a huge fan of dinner parties.
Dinner parties, huh?
Yeah, he says it's a great way to create those deeper connections in a more, intimate setting.
I love that idea. It feels so much more approachable than like a stuffy networking event. But I got to be honest, I always get a little intimidated by the whole hosting thing.
I hear you. But Ferrazzi keeps it pretty simple. He says, pick a theme, send out invites in advance, and don't stress about the food.
Okay, so keep it casual, keep it fun.
Exactly. The most important thing is to create a space where people feel comfortable, where those genuine conversations can flow. Like, I know a group of friends who started doing these monthly potluck dinners.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It's become this, tradition for them, a way to connect, share stories, support each other. And it doesn't have to be a dinner party, It could be brunch, a movie night, whatever.
It's about creating that regular space for connection.
Exactly. And making it a part of your life, not just something you do when you need to network.
I love that. It's like weaving connection into the fabric of your life.
Exactly. And that shift in mindset, it's crucial when it comes to building your personal brand, too.
Okay, let's talk about that. Personal branding. What does that even mean in the real world?
Well, Ferrazzi says it's all about being interesting, having something valuable to offer in conversations, and showcasing your expertise.
Okay, so what you bring to the table.
Exactly. And content plays a big role in that.
Content, what kind of content?
It could be anything, really. Sharing your insights on LinkedIn, writing blog posts, making videos, speaking at events. The key is to create something that, reflects your expertise, your passions, your unique point of view.
I've actually found that when I share my writing online, I tend to connect with people who have similar interests. It's like we're drawn to each other because we're both passionate about the same things.
That's exactly it. Content acts as a magnet, drawing people in who are aligned with your mission, your values.
It's not about creating this like perfect persona. It's about being real.
100%. Ferrazzi is all about authenticity and candor.
So being yourself is actually the best branding strategy.
You got it. When you let your true self shine through, that's what makes you relatable. That's what connects you with people.
This is all starting to click for me now. Generosity, authenticity, strategic connections, and the power of content. It's like they all work together to create this.
Web of meaningful relationships.
Exactly. But how do we actually manage all these connections? Like, do I need a spreadsheet? Color-coded calendar reminders?
Well, Ferrazzi actually has a pretty simple system. He says, divide your network into categories.
Categories? Like what?
It could be like personal friends, customers, prospects, key business associates, people you aspire to connect with.
Okay, so breaking it down into manageable chunks.
Exactly. And then he assigns a number to each person, 1, 2, or 3.
Numbers.
Yeah, it's all about how often you want to connect with them. A 1 might be someone you reach out to monthly, a 2 quarterly, and a 3 maybe just once a year.
Okay, so a simple way to track who to connect with and when.
He even suggests writing little notes next to each name, like reminders of your last conversation, how you connected, just little things to personalize your outreach.
So you don't send those generic just checking in emails.
Exactly. It's about making each connection feel, personal and valuable.
This is great. It's practical, it's personalized, and it keeps the focus on building genuine relationships.
And that's what it's all about, right? Building a network isn't about collecting trophies. It's about cultivating relationships that actually enrich your life.
I'm feeling so much more inspired about networking now. It's not this scary, overwhelming thing. It's an opportunity to connect with amazing people and create something, bigger than ourselves.
That's the magic of shifting your perspective, right? When
Yeah.
you start to see the world as full of potential collaborators, mentors, friends, well, the possibilities are endless.
I love that. It's about recognizing that everyone has something valuable to offer, and that by connecting with each other, we can create a richer, more interconnected world. It really is amazing how, just changing how you think about something can completely transform your experience.
Right. Like networking doesn't have to be this dreaded chore. It can actually be, fun and fulfilling.
Totally. But we've covered a lot of ground here, and I think the last piece of the puzzle is, how do we actually maintain all these amazing connections we're building?
Yeah, that's key, right? It's not just about collecting contacts. It's about nurturing those relationships so they actually thrive.
It's like a garden. You can't just plant the seeds and forget about them. You got to water them, tend to them, give them what they need to grow.
Perfect analogy. And Ferrazzi actually talks about this. He calls it pinging.
Pinging. Okay, I like it. So how do we ping effectively?
Well, it's basically about staying in touch regularly, offering value, keeping those relationships warm.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
But I'm guessing there's no one-size-fits-all approach here.
You got it. Different relationships need different levels of attention. Like, you wouldn't interact with your best friend the same way you would with a business acquaintance.
True. So how do we figure out the right pinging frequency for each person?
Think about it in terms of, how often you naturally want to connect with someone. Close friends, key colleagues, maybe that's a monthly thing. Casual acquaintances, maybe it's quarterly.
Okay, so finding a rhythm that feels, natural and not forced.
Yeah.
But does pinging always have to be this big, elaborate thing?
Not at all. It's really about those small, consistent actions, like sending a quick email to share an interesting article, commenting on their LinkedIn post, even just wishing them a happy birthday on Facebook.
Little things that show you're thinking of them.
Yeah.
I've actually found that even just a simple thinking of you message can really brighten someone's day.
It's those small gestures that go a long way. And you never know, they can sometimes lead to bigger opportunities down the line. Like, I remember this one time I sent a quick email to an old colleague, just congratulating her on a new job.
Nice.
And a couple weeks later, she reached out saying she was hiring and asked if I knew anyone who might be a good fit. Ended up being a perfect opportunity for a friend of mine.
Wow, that's awesome. So those little pings can have a ripple effect, creating opportunities for everyone involved. And it all goes back to that idea of generosity, right? Give without expectation, And those good vibes will always come back around.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And as we wrap up our deep dive into Never Eat Alone, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge.
I love a good challenge.
Think of one person in your network you've been meaning to connect with. Someone you admire, someone who inspires you, someone who could maybe use your support. Reach out to them today. Send them a message, give them a call, offer to buy them coffee. You might be surprised by what happens.
What a great way to put all this into action. And as you embark on your own networking journey, remember Ferrazzi's golden rule. The real currency of networking is generosity. The more you give, the more you get. So go out there, connect with the world, and see what amazing things you can create together.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be complicated or intimidating. Start small, be authentic, and focus on building those genuine connections.
That's a wrap on this episode of BHY Solutions. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep diving deep.